So when somebody comes to you, typically it's because they haven't been able to find an off-the-shelf solution that's gonna kind of do what they need to do. Is that somewhat
Um,
accurate?
Not always. Sometimes it's about not being able to find a solution. Sometimes they're in an end of life, an EOL situation where they need a drop-in replacement where we can, match it mechanically, electrically, etc. And sometimes it's on price. I mean, you can't always ignore price, right? So, but we like to build on value, not just price. And we've seen companies, especially startups, go belly up because they went after price instead of going after the solution that truly would have worked for them.
Right. The old
Right.
race to the
And
bottom.
customization, like you mentioned. So
Yeah.
you brought up the fact of paying for features that you don't need or aspects you don't need. If, for example, you buy a laptop, it has maybe 6, 7 different connectors on the laptop, and most people maybe use one of them or
Right.
possibly two of them.
Right.
You
Right.
pay for all of them,
Yeah.
but you're only buying one laptop, so that's
Yep.
not so bad. If you're buying equipment because you make a machine, you might be buying 5,000. So paying an extra $5 on the laptop is not a problem, but paying an extra $5 on 10,000 pieces, right? You'd rather put that $50,000 back in your pocket. So
Right.
making a dedicated, customization sometimes I think to some people sounds expensive, but not customizing when you're buying volume is expensive.
I
You're
see.
better off making something designed to fit your need. And I'll use Taco Bell as an example. They have a display. It's 150 feet away from the restaurant. You don't want to put the computer outside because it's very hot and it gets very expensive to put a computer outside. You need fans and cooling. So they had about 4 different boards inside, one to extend video, one to extend sound, um, another one to monitor temperature, and another for another signal microphone. We integrated everything into a single board. So we took it from 36 potential points of failure down to 9 potential points of failure.
Hmm.
And it also reduced the cost of assembly because those 4 boards all had to have interconnecting cables. So now you had like 8 or 9 cables. Now we only have 3 cables.
Mm.
So doing that, and we also combine power and signal as well, and power over Ethernet as our interface. So the whole system only has a single connector. So the installation cost, they had told us back in the day we were saving them $1 million a year in installation cost. So to me, customization, we think about custom cars and custom, vans or whatever, and it sounds expensive because if you do it for one, customization is very expensive. If you do it for thousands, it's not expensive. You pay the money up front, and then you save that money on every unit that you build.
Right. I
Yeah,
really
sure.
like that concept of kind of focusing on points of failure instead of features, right? Um, I think that's really interesting. I have to think about like the applications for that, but I feel like there's a lot of them. And I think a lot of companies probably don't think like that. They're thinking about features and not points of failure.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we think about both, right? It's got to meet the application. So, for the Taco Bell, it had to be bright enough to be seen in the sun. It had to handle some level of vandalism, right? People get angry, they punch the screen, or
Depends on what part of the country you're in, right?
yeah, storms, electrical storms, regular storms, um, you know, and so all that we get very little back. We have 2 patents as it's based around outdoor displays for optical bonding and for display cooling. So out in the sun, so we don't use fans outside typically, where
Solid
most of the
state.
solutions use many fans to keep it cool.
Yeah, a good example of that is at the bus stations down in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Outdoor display, direct sunlight, no fans, right? And I think you should touch on the board a little more, how it monitors the unit and sends information back, right, to the company
Mm.
to let you know about a failure without somebody physically seeing it in the field, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. That was our first product. Was this because we were involved in the beginning of digital signage, and we're taking displays and putting them out in the sun. They were never designed to do that. And so we're realizing that these things were melting down and having all kinds of damage. So the first thing we do is we're monitoring temperature, automatically adjusting brightness and contrast to get the best visibility without overheating it. And what we noticed was you get a lot of data back about how much power the display is using, what the light output is, and you start to be able to do some predictive analysis because you have thousands of displays in the field, and you say, well, okay, 90% of the displays are working in this range, right? A certain range. And you start to see when displays start working out of the range, something's going wrong. It's not broken yet, but something is starting to go wrong. And you could send out a tech ahead of time before the display goes down and before there's lost revenue and fix it ahead of time. Because, for example, in fast food, they want to get somebody through I think it's about 45 seconds. And if there's not an order confirmation display, they found it takes like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, because they have to read back your order to you. If you're looking at what you order and you see it, then you say, oh, wait, that's not what I ordered. But if someone has to read it back to you, I'm like, what was that? I didn't hear it. Did you say extra cheese? Or, you know what I mean? It sounds silly, but they make a lot of their money, and throughput during lunch hours is like 60% of fast food's income.
I'm sure.
Right. So if that display goes down and it's down for a couple of days, they're losing tens of thousands of dollars of revenue. Right. So being able to have that predictive analysis and seeing that, hey, there might be a problem with this ahead of time, could potentially save the company tens of thousands of dollars, and that's not even talking about the installation costs that Keith touched on, right? So it's a little bit of NRE tooling, et cetera, on the front end, and it's pretty reasonable. Could potentially save a company a lot of money on the back end, right? Because they're getting a solution that's fine-tuned, highly defined for their specific application and use case, and they're not buying off the shelf unit that has a bunch of features they don't need. And talking on failing points, I mean, think about COVID a couple of years ago with all the component shortages, right? So you have all these additional components on any one of these boards that maybe aren't needed by the customer. Well, not just as a failure point, but God forbid there's another shortage crisis. You have all these pieces you don't need on the board that are going to prevent you from being able to get product. Where if a board was designed specifically for what you're using it for and had the inputs and outputs that you need, there's less failure points and there's less chance of a supply chain issue on the components.
Right. Yeah. I got to thinking about my truck when you were talking about like features you don't need. I'm like,
don't talk about trucks.
How much did I pay for my freaking seatbelt alarm and for the automatic shutting my truck down every stoplight that I shut off every time I get in the truck? Like, how much did I pay for this stuff that I don't want? Right. Hey, I'm Nate Wheeler. I am the host of Manufacturing Insiders Podcast. Really want to thank you for joining today. I hope that you learned some really great insights from this manufacturing leader that you're about to hear from. I also hope that you'll go ahead and hit that like button on the video and subscribe to our channel so you can see more of the stuff that comes out as we're continuing to publish content. Every like, every subscribe really helps us get this message out. And the message that we're sharing is really just a message of hope for manufacturers. I understand, I work with you guys every day. I understand how many different obstacles are in your faces, from technology to government regulations to competition from foreign and domestic markets. And I really want to share strategies with you on how to deal with these issues. And I think there's no better way to learn than hearing directly from somebody that solves some of these challenges. Thanks for watching today, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, this goes back to that conversation of, price versus value, right? And we like to sell on value, not price. We're very competitive anyway on price, but to shave a couple of pennies here or there, to your point, you want a product that's going to last you 15 years, or you want one that you have to rebuy in 8 months after you don't have support.
Right. Yeah. Just like McDonald's, they could have bought yours first, right?
Yeah. Well, Taco Bell's not complaining, so yeah.
Yeah. I think you brought up another important point that that should be emphasized really to anyone in the audience, and that's gathering data. The fact that you were able to gather data on these displays outside, number one, to kind of understand the range that they're operating in, and maybe you don't need as robust on this end, but you need more robust on this end, those sorts of decisions. But then also to be able to do that preventive maintenance. But that data is going to be so valuable to anybody that can get data. And it almost doesn't matter what data you're gathering. Like if you've got a CNC machine and you can measure the output of that machine, how many parts per hour, that indicator could give you all the information you need about what you need to adjust or if something's going wrong, things of that nature. But in order to leverage automation and AI, the first thing we need is data.
That's
And
right.
so that's where we need to start, is getting sensors, getting any sort of mechanism we can to gather data.
Oh, of course. They say knowledge is power. Power. Guess what? Data is knowledge, right? This is why you've got companies like Google, Meta, et cetera, that have these giant warehouses filled with servers that are just collecting data.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot, definitely 100% a lot to that.